So tomorrow I'm making wholemeal sourdough, and the culture has been sitting in the fridge untouched for about a week. It's quite liquid, but it smells good. So I'm going to feed it now. I'm going to feed it twice before I make bread tomorrow, so that it's really lively and full of health. So in this bowl here, I've weighed out 50 grams of wholemeal flour, 35 grams of water, and 10 grams of the culture balm. And I'm just going to mix it to a paste, and I'm going to leave it in a warm place, 26 degrees, until this evening. And I'm going to do exactly the same again, and I'm going to leave it overnight at ambient, which will be down to about probably 23 degrees overnight in Dominica. And then first thing in the morning tomorrow, 7 o'clock, I'm going to make the levain with the balm, and the process starts again. So I'm making wholemeal sourdough today. I've got my culture, which has been rising overnight and has been fed twice, so it's lovely and lively. And I'm going to use that to make the levain, which is what effectively is going to make the wholemeal bread rise. So I've weighed out already 70 grams of wholemeal flour. I'm going to add 40 grams of levain. 40 grams of the culture to the flour. So that's 40 grams, and I'm going to add 50 grams of water. 50 grams of water. There we go. And I'm just going to mix it to a paste and leave it 5 hours. And then after 5 hours, that will be nice and bubbly and be really lively, and will make the bread rise really well. While the levain is rising for 5 hours, I'm going to prepare the tang zong. So I've got my flour for the bread, 900 grams, and I'm going to sift out some bran. I'm just literally going to put some of the flour into a sieve and shake it until I get rid of all the actual flour part, and I'm just left with the bran particles. And I'm going to add boiling water to this. To the 100 grams of bran that I've separated from the flour, I'm going to add 180 grams of boiling water, which I've just boiled up, filtered water, and that's been weighed in advance. And I'm just going to stir it, and then it's going to just wait until I make the bread, and it's going to be incorporated in the bread later on. So it's just going to sit on the table along with the levain for 5 hours. There we go. Another job you do while you're waiting for the levain to rise and bubble away is you autolyze the flour. So we had 900 grams of flour. I took out 100 grams of the flour for the tang zong, and so I now have 800 grams left, and I'm going to add 600 grams of water to this, which I've weighed in advance, and I'm just going to mix it. And it's just going to sit along with the levain and the tang zong, and so that's all the water for the dough has gone in there now. So it's just going to sit now for a minimum of 2 hours, the autolyzing. And the point of autolyzing is it allows the gluten to absorb the water better, the bread rises better, and it's altogether a better product. A method invented by Professor Clavel in France 50 years ago. So we're now ready to knead the dough. So we've got all these bowls here, look, all lined up. This is the levain. It's completely filled the bowl. It's really lively. There's the salt. There's the tang zong, and there's the autolyzed dough. So we're just going to put all together. Put the culture in. The levain in, That's what's going to make it rise. So you get all of it, and the salt. And then you start kneading it. So you can either use a stand mixer, or there are many ways of mixing, or you can just do it by hand like this. You push it forwards, bring it back. So I've been kneading this dough for about 15 minutes now, and so with wholemeal I like to fully knead it, meaning that when you take a piece of the dough like so and you stretch it, you can stretch it and it doesn't break. Can you see what I'm doing? You can see through it now, or virtually. I can actually see it. It's like thin lace. So you knead it until you get this effect, and it's called the window pane test. With white dough, I don't go this far. I undermix it, but with whole wheat, I do. You can literally see through it. Okay, I've been kneading this dough for about 15 minutes now, and I've kneaded it till it reached what's called the window pane. I'll show you what that means. Bit of flour on your hands. Just pick up a bit of dough and you stretch it, and you stretch it, and you stretch it, and it mustn't break. Can you see? It's not. I'm stretching it, and it's not tearing. It's not tearing. It becomes almost see-through. You can almost see through it, and that's called a window pane. It's like thin lace. So that means the gluten's fully developed and the bread will rise. It's really strong dough and it's going to rise. So now it's going to what's called bulk fermentation for 5 hours at 26 degrees. So you must always take a temperature of the dough. Yeah, mine is 26.2 degrees, which is fine. You don't want it below 25 really. So you need to keep it warm. So since the dough has finished mixing, it's been resting now 45 minutes and it's going to have its first turn. So I'm taking the dough out of the bowl, putting the dough on the table, and it's going to have 3 turns at 45-minute intervals. And so it finished mixing at 1 o'clock, so which means that it has to bulk ferment for 5 hours. So at 6 o'clock, I'm going to start moulding it and putting it into the banneton. But in the meantime, it's going to have 3 turns and then rest until 6 o'clock. And it's now 1:30 actually. So, okay, so this, I'll show you what a turn is. Bit of flour on the table. Fold to the middle. The other fold all the way over. Turn it around 90 degrees. Fold to the middle. Fold all the way over. And that's it, and it sits another 45 minutes. So the dough's been bulk rising for 5 hours now. It's now 6:15, and I'm going to mould them and put them into the bannetons. These are the bannetons, willow baskets, and you've got to I'm putting rice flour on them. Rice flour is better than regular flour because it doesn't absorb moisture and it stops the bread from sticking, because the dough is very sticky. It's a very high hydration. So I've got, okay, and now I'm going to mould. I've got 2 loaves out of my batch, so I'm just going to show you how I'm going to mould it. A little bit of flour, and flour on your hands, and then you're basically revolving on the spot. And the idea is you want a taut surface, so you're increasing the surface tension. So I'm just literally revolving on the spot, and the bread is going inside itself. The bread has finished its bulk fermentation. It's had 5 hours, and I've got 2 loaves. I've cut it into 2 equal pieces, and I'm now going to mould it. A little bit of flour on the table, flour on your hands, and then so you're literally going around on the spot. It's like this. You're going on the spot. You're making the dough tighter, increasing the surface tension. So you've got a really tight, taut bread without hammering it and getting all the air out of it. And then the bannetons, you put rice flour in it to stop the dough from sticking. Rice flour is better than regular flour because it doesn't absorb moisture, so the bread won't stick. So I'm now just going to gently put flour on the top, turn the dough upside down and into the banneton. There we go. If there's a slight imperfection, I'll just squeeze it together. And there we are. That'll go. So I've got, so the dough has been rising 5 hours now. I've divided it into 2 equal pieces, and I'm going to mould it. So you basically you're turning on the spot all the time. You're increasing the surface tension, making the dough tighter so that it's really tight, but without pressing too hard. I'm being very gentle so as not to knock the air out of it. And then we put rice flour in the baskets. Rice flour is better than regular flour because it doesn't absorb moisture, so the bread won't stick. So I'm now going to, that's nicely moulded. I'm going to put flour on the top, turn it upside down, and put it into the banneton. Where it's opening slightly, I'll squeeze it together. Now this is going to go into a plastic bag, into the fridge at 3 degrees centigrade, and it's going to what's called retard overnight, and the flavour will get better and better overnight, and bake in the morning. Okay, it's that exciting time when we put the bread in the oven. So this wholemeal sourdough has been rising overnight in the fridge, well, gently rising and improving, retarding at 3 degrees, and here we are. It's completely full up in the banneton. So I'm now going to put it into the Dutch oven, which has been heating up for half an hour. It's red hot, you can see the smoke coming out of it. And I'm just going to put a little bit of flour on top of the bread, stop it sticking to my hands. There we are, lovely. Put it into the banneton. Bit of flour on the bread, give it a cut. So I'm cutting it several times to make it a really deep cut, but I'm cutting in the same place. And there we go. So into the oven. So the bread's I've just taken the bread out of the oven. It's had 25 minutes with the lid off, 25 minutes with the lid on. It went into the oven straight from the fridge, straight from cold. And wow, here we go. And look at that. How about that? Okay, I think that it's really light, crisp surface, 100% whole wheat. It's risen amazingly, smells gorgeous. I'm putting the second loaf in the oven now. I've just taken it out of the fridge. And look at that, fully risen. So after I moulded the dough last night, I left it in the banneton at ambient for about an hour so that the dough is 80 to 90% proved. And then the last 10% of proving happens in the fridge overnight at 3 degrees so that when you take it out in the morning, it's ready to go in the oven. So you don't pre-prove it in the morning. And now I'm just going to put a bit of flour on the top so that it doesn't stick to my hands when I put it into the Dutch oven. And here we go, look at that, straight out because of the rice flour, didn't stick, straight into the red hot banneton, flour on top of the bread so that the knife doesn't stick. I'm going to cut it several times in the same place so that it's a really deep cut, and into the oven. So I've just taken the second loaf out of the oven, 100% whole wheat sourdough, and here we are, another lovely loaf. Really crisp, very, very light, amazingly light, a lovely cut on the top. So yeah, so that from when I first started to feed the barn or culture to now, it's basically 3 days. So it's a labour of love. You've got to love doing this, but it's worth it. Now comes the exciting time. Well, exciting for me anyway. I always get very excited. I know it's a little bit pathetic really, but I just love seeing inside the bread once I've made it. So I'm going to cut it now. This is what I took out the oven a couple of hours ago. It's cold now. And nice sharp knife. We'll just see what we got inside here. There we go. It's looking nice. Nice light open texture. There we go. Lovely. Nice big holes. Yeah. Now comes that exciting time for me anyway, when I cut the bread. This is the 100% whole wheat sourdough, which I took out of the oven a couple of hours ago. So it's got cold now. We'll just see what it's like inside. Here we go. Look at that. Lovely, nice big holes. Light and airy. Perfect.